Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Bionicle Inspiration Series. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about Bohrok. You may remember them. They were an old G1 style of set. They were very, very cool because they could roll up into balls. They also had necks that you could, pull the little gear function on the back and they would sling forward and knock off the mask of the Toa. And then you could put the Krana on them and corrupt the Toa and convert them to the dark side. They were pretty cool. And so we're going to take a look at multiple different Bohrok mocks and see how you yourself could reimagine them or build your own or, take some interesting routes with different style of Bohrok. So let's begin. The first mock we've got today is by LibrarianBot and is simply called Bohrok. So I love this reimagining of the classic design. It uses a lot of older parts and kind of gives it this sort of older style and kind of older look as a whole. It's very nice to see. So I really like the color scheme on this, using tan and black. It's actually a really nice color scheme. Those colors go together very nicely. But yeah, so some interesting things that kind of help update this Bohrok in some fashion. So giving it a bit of a posable neck there, so it's got 2 points of, ball and socket articulation there. Adding the little additions to the little claw weapon bits on the Bohrok there. Just the simple addition of those dark grey bricks there does a lot for it. Kind of gives it more of a kind of menacing look to the weapon, because the weapons as a whole don't really look that kind of claw-like or weapon-like in any, they do, but they don't, So adding that on there is just a nice way of expanding that a little. And also the legs there, putting those slicer bits there to give it a more kind of a pronounced boot. It's cool. I like it a lot. So yeah, just little bits like that, whether it's adding the little bit of that sort of grey lift arm bit there onto the torso, or the little additions to the arms or the legs or things like that. There's little bits that sort of buff it out, make it a bit bigger. It's just a nice way of reimagining the original concept. Because more or less, this is the exact same thing as the set, but just a few things have been changed. And heck, you've got a great mock as a result. Pretty cool. So, let's take a look at the next mock, which is by Awesomeness Born and is called Gen2 Bohrok. So we just saw a way of sort of reimagining the original Bohrok design using very classic pieces in a classic style. So let's take a look at doing the exact same thing, but focusing on a more modern style, so your G2 style of building. And yeah, that's the thing, Bionicle G2 reimagined the original 6 Toa, and Makuta for that matter. So there's no reason you couldn't do that with the Bohrok, or heck, you could even do it with the Rakshi, or the Visorak, or the Paraka, anything. Anything from the original Bionicle G1, there is no reason you couldn't reimagine it in a more CCBS-focused G2 style of building. And that's a really cool thing to do. And of course, with doing that, you get a little bit of creative freedom. You could stick very heavily to how they originally looked, or you could kind of play around with the concept a little bit here. We take a look at these Bohrok here. The visor part there uses some of the invasion from below egg kind of rubbery pieces there. And it kind of gives the Bohrok this sort of slightly alien sort of slimy look to them, which is a bit of a departure from the original source material, but I think it's a welcome departure. It plays with the style a little bit and just looks really nice. So yeah, no reason you couldn't do that if you were reimagining the Bohrok or reimagining any of the original Bionicle characters or concepts. And yeah, I think this looks great on this mock here. Especially too, giving it 2 eyes like that, kind of making it look a bit more alien or bug-like. Very cool. Same thing with those teeth there, using a bunch of different teeth or claw pieces and other things to connect them there. Looks very nice and still has little hints and little tones of the originals, but is very much updated and different. And yeah, overall using a bunch of just your generic CCBS pieces there to kind of create the limbs and everything else. Simple, effective, looks great. And they also roll up into balls as well, so very fitting to the original concept. Very, very nice. Nice work, Awesomeness Born. Your mock truly is Awesomeness Born. Let's move on to the next mock, which is by Marco, and it's called Gen2 Nuhvok. So this, of course, was the black Bohrok that he has revamped. And it looks great. So, we were just talking before about, hey, here's a cool G2 style of building a Bohrok. Well, here is the exact same thing once again. But this is a sort of very different approach to how the other one was done. But they still both look really super cool. And yeah, that's the thing. Maybe you're building something at the moment and you're loving how it looks, but you're really struggling on an arm design or a head design or something's just not quite working. Well, remember, there's always multiple ways of doing something, as we can see between the difference between this Bohrok design and the last one. Same concept, same idea, very different execution. So that's the thing. Maybe you've got a buddy who builds with Lego, or you've met a buddy online who builds with Lego. Maybe see how they would approach something that you're struggling on. Let them take the wheel, see how they would do it, and then you could implement that into your own mock in some fashion. Or just take an entirely different approach. Maybe you're sort of very dead set on one thing. We'll try the complete opposite thing and see what avenue that is and see what road that takes you down there, because it might be the exact thing you're looking for. Anyway, let's talk about this. Really love the eye design here, using some of the visor pieces that came from Brain Attack sets from Hero Factory. those actually work very nicely as a sort of much bigger eye design for the Bohrok. Kind of makes them look a little bit more menacing, a little bit more evil, kind of gives them a bit of an evil look to those eyes there. Very cool. Also like that he's given them 4 teeth as well. It's a bit of a departure from the original, but looks really cool. Again, makes him look more menacing and evil. And then the weapons here, simply using the Onua sort of diggy, claw, hammery pieces there. Those actually look pretty perfect as a sort of updated modern version of those Bohrok weapon pieces. It's a very nice use of those parts. And then he's simply straight up just used that Bohrok visor piece there. You know, maybe you are aiming for that G2 style, but there's no reason that you couldn't use original Bionicle pieces or Hero Factory pieces. Heck, we saw that with the other G2 mock there with the same thing with the visor. You know, Bionicle G2 did do that. They used some system pieces or some original Bionicle pieces in their set, so there's literally no reason you couldn't do the same when applying it to a G2 style revamp. You don't have to exclusively use G2 unless that's the challenge that you want to set for yourself, but you can always sort of dibble and dabble in a few other concepts, parts and things like that and see where that takes you. So yeah, I think that looks great. Nice work, Marco. Let's move on to the next mock, which is the exact same Bohrok Nuhvok, but this is Nuhvok Carl. So remember, there were the Bohrok and there were the Bohrok Carl, which were more or less the same thing. They just had a bit of silver in the color scheme. So do you want to revamp a Bohrok, or do you want to revamp a Bohrok Carl, or do you want to build your own Bohrok or Bohrok Carl? And if you want to read a little bit more about the Bohrok or the Bohrok Carl, be sure to check out the Bionicle Wiki or Biosector. Just simply Google exactly that, and then study up on your Bohrok, because there's all sorts of lore that you can read about. Whether you've never touched the Bionicle lore, or you're a little new to Bionicle, the lore is an awesome part of it, and a great way to generate ideas, because there's all sorts of characters and storylines that are great hooks for you when building. And heck, I think the lore is what attracted most people into a love of Bionicle. So even if you already know everything there is to know about the lore, you may as well head over to the Bionicle Wiki anyway, because it's fun to read. Anyway, I wish I was being paid to advertise the Bionicle Wiki, but I'm not. So let's talk about this mock. So this is a massive reimagining of the original concept, making him a lot bigger and a lot more awesome. You kind of take a look at the head design here. Sort of more or less the same thing, you know, it's got the teeth, it's got the eyes, and then it's got the shield bit on top. But then Joxon here, I don't think I said this was by Joxon. This was by Joxon. So yeah, shield, eyes, teeth, but then he's added a whole bunch of other stuff there, like horns coming out, a more pronounced sort of eyebrow or brow to the mock there. Yeah, it's just taken what was originally there and just buffed it out, giving it more eyes, giving it more teeth. In fact, he's got, you know, 2 lots of individual teeth at the bottom there, and also kind of a third one there kind of coming down from the nose. Looks actually awesome. And I like that, you know, a massive departure from the original thing, but still captures its essence and still looks just as cool. And heck, even if you wanted to take this away from the entire Bohrok vibe, just ignore that that's what it's called, and it's enough of a departure that it, you know, could just be its own cool looking alien thing. And maybe that's something you want to do. Maybe you want to build a cool looking alien guy that fits with your own unique story that you've got going with these characters you've made, or you're not really into the whole Bionicle lore and its characters. Well, maybe you could just take little notes from characters or concepts in Bionicle, like the Bohrok or like the Rakshi. You know, maybe you want to build this cool sort of animalistic character, and so you go, oh, I like the Rakshi. Maybe I could do something similar to their spines and the way their head kind of flows out of the spine, so I can kind of capture some of the essence of a Rakshi, but it is not in fact a Rakshi, it's just da-da-da-da-da. Or, you know, maybe you like a Xenomorph from Alien. You go, oh, I like the thing with the tongue, like how it's, you know, got its own little mouth there. I could apply that to my own mock. Maybe I could do this, da-da-da-da-da. And so you take notions from what already exists, but you vastly change it and put it into your own light. You know, that sort of stuff has been done all the time. I mean, heck, when you think about it enough, Iron Man and Batman, they both don't have superpowers. They both just are rich and make cool stuff with it. And they've got great suits. They're more or less the same character, but they're really not. They're vastly different characters. And, you know, Marvel and DC have all sorts of characters that kind of riff off each other, but they go down very different avenues and can be very different characters, except for some of them, which are, you know, very, very similar, but whatever. It's the universe they grow up in. It's the costume that they wear, and it's their own personality. They become their own individual thing, right? So there's no reason you couldn't do the exact same thing with the Lego stuff that you're making. You take notions from stuff, and you fix it, and you make it your own. That's not stealing. That is creativity. There's that whole school of thought that every idea has been done already. So that's something you can do, is you take a few things from something, and you apply it to your own way. You put your own creative spin on it, and boom, there you go. You've got more or less an original concept. But yeah, overall, Joxon's Bohrok Carl here is a bigger, more badass version of the original. I like the idea of sort of making the Bohrok a lot more bigger, because they are, yeah, well, they were quite a, you know, a small little set there, but nothing wrong with sort of buffing them out. I mean, heck, this is almost a Titan Bohrok, and I love that. It's cool. Making it a bit bigger, you get a bit more room to play with. If you're making a little smaller guy, it can be a little bit harder to kind of pack in details or kind of expand or explore it in some fashion. So if you've got the pieces, nothing wrong with making a bigger version of the original. Very cool, Joxon. Let's move on to the next mock, which is once again Nuhvok. Everybody loves building this guy. That's the third one in this episode. There we go. This is another revamp of that awesome Bohrok. And this is by Alex Mertens, otherwise known as Construction Diva. I can't say your name, Construction Diva, without sounding super Australian. Anyway, so really like the eye design on this mock here, using those berry pieces to form this little jewel eye bit there. Super, super cool. I love that. It's very unique, a very nice use of that little cherry berry piece there. Very cool. And that little touch of purple there just pops so lovely against the black and dark grey background like that. Just the rest of the color of the mock. I mean, technically the background is that grey, but regardless, it very much pops and it looks nice. Very, very cool. And you've also introduced a little bit of lime there, which kind of acts as the crown. Of course, the Bohrok had their little crown a bit there. And I like the fact that you've completely removed the visor and it's just sort of jutting out there. Again, this is an entirely different way of looking at a Bohrok, so that's of course warranted and very cool. Also, we take a look at the head there. It uses a bunch of those tail pieces in black, and some of that's even used on the torso as well. And kind of this whole mock has this sort of very smooth and organic looking look to it. Very, very different from the original. The others are a bit more sort of rigid to some degree, whereas this is a lot more sort of smooth, flowing, and organic. It's very, very cool. Very, very different stylistic approach, A lot of the others did have that sort of smooth flowing look to them, but this one sort of just looks a little bit more organic in its textures here. Everything's very smooth flowing. There's a little bit more of a sort of slimmer build to this mock as well. We've seen 3 versions of Nuhvok in this episode, and all of them have been vastly different, which again is a testament to just how unique every builder is. Everyone has their own individual building style, and also the fact that, just because someone's already done something doesn't mean you can't do it even better or in an entirely different, unique way. Just super cool. Taking a look at the head once again, you might be looking at the little connection piece that's touching both 2 of those black tail pieces together, and it's actually connecting them in some fashion. You might be like, what is that part? Well, my friends, that is a brick arms piece, so it is technically a third-party piece. It is not an official LEGO part. If the police were here, you'd be arrested, good sir. It's fine, you can use them. Brick Arms is a third-party LEGO company that specializes in making gun pieces for minifigures. I wish this was a paid advertisement, but it's not. They're pretty cool. I'm not a big fan of them, mainly just because I just prefer using official LEGO guns, and I don't really make mocks that need guns in them, except for Star Wars stuff, but I just like using the ones LEGO gives me. But they're pretty cool if you're a gun enthusiast, if you enjoy your guns, or you want to kind of get a little more accurate with them or something. They're cool. But they also come with these specific connector pieces here, and they basically can kind of clip onto some of the various guns, so you can put like a bayonet on it or other little attachments and things to it. But they're a really beautiful, awesome piece that I wish existed in the real palette of LEGO's amazing parts, because it's 2 clips literally right next to each other like that, so you can get very tight connections with it. It's a beautiful, beautiful part. And if you have them, it's very useful for mocking. So if you want to go that route, if you want to go to head on over to Brick Arms, most of the time any LEGO convention you go to probably has Brick Arms for sale. They might have some of those parts lying around, and if you want to use them in your mocks, gosh, they're helpful. I wish I had some because they're great and very cool. There you go. Let's move on to the next mock, which is by Socket Ball and is called Suspended Bohrok. So I kind of like this. He's put a Bohrok in a jar, and it looks like he's almost frozen him inside of it. Kind of looks like those awesome specimen things where there's a whole dead snake inside. It's all coiled up in some yellow water and stuff. Kind of is a unique presentation for the mock. That's something to think about, Maybe you've got your mocks sitting on a shelf, or they're sitting in a box because you don't really have a way to display them. Or maybe you could put it in a jar and freeze it like this, or, I don't know, get creative with the ways that you want to display it. Maybe you want to hang a net from your roof and have all your Visorak climbing around or something. Lots of different ways you could display your mocks, and I think that alone is just an interesting idea. But also, let's take a look at this Bohrok here. It's literally just your typical Bohrok design that you would have seen, but it's in colors that it didn't exist in, and that's pretty cool. So under this kind of, whatever it is, under this water bit or whatever, this Bohrok almost looks Key Orange, but it is in fact orange. And then it's got rust little bits and bits of brown everywhere as well. And that's something to think about, is the fact that a bunch of those original Bohrok pieces actually came in other colors. The Bohrok shield there came in orange, it also came in black, it also came in Key Orange, except that was just the solid color, it didn't have the little clear bit on there too. But yeah, those Bohrok pieces, the specific visor bit came in a heap of different colors. Those weapons, the Bohrok weapons there came in a heap of other colors too, as did the feet, as did a lot of the Bohrok parts. So if you really wanted to just stick to the original Bohrok design, you could actually make them in colors that they straight up didn't exist in as sets, because we have the pieces to do so, like this mock shows here. So that's one avenue you could take if you go, I don't want to reimagine the Bohrok, or I don't want to, blah blah blue. I just want to build my own Bohrok. You can build them in some other colors too. And you could always mix and match with the colors that actually came in the sets. Put a bit of blue with a bit of black, or a bit of black with some red. I don't know. See what it looks like. Could work. Interesting idea. Nice work, Soccer Ball. Let's move on to the last mock of this episode, and it's a good one. This is a one by both Andrew Steele and a one Jafer. So this is a reimagining of the Bohrok queens Kadok and Gadok, and they're pretty awesome. So of course the Bohrok had their queens, and they were Kadok and Gadok. That was their names. They looked like this, and this is what Jafer and Andrew's versions look like. They're very much a modern reinterpretation of them, using more modern techniques and styles. You take a look at the original Bohrok queens. They have this very kind of detail-heavy, almost kind of greebled look to them, very sort of mechanical looking, very G1 in style, whereas this modern interpretation is very smooth, organic, very G2 in style. That's beautiful to see. And also they've taken a lot of the concepts that the original ones had and then very much reinterpreted them into this this new look, and very much sort of focused on the story or just aspects of the characters and embodied them into it. Now I'll go into a bit more detail about that later, but he has built a little accompanying Bohrok for those. Let's quickly talk about those guys. So these guys are very cute. And there's actually instructions for them online too if you want. So you'll have to check the links in the description and take a look at Jafer's stuff, where he has in fact made instructions for them. So if you're like, oh, hot damn, I want to build some of these myself, you can. You just got to head on over to, I believe it was on Instagram that he posted those instructions. You'll find them there. But yeah, overall pretty cool. A lot of notions that I spoke about before in these guys here, more modern reinterpretation of them, giving them this sort of almost alien look. They're very cool. And the fact that in this shot here kind of looks like they're being almost birthed, like that's an umbilical cord or something. Creepy, but super cool. But quite fitting for the original concept. So let's take a look at the first one here. This is Gadok, the red one. Some brilliant part spamming going on here on the neck, as well as on the body, repeating all those Exoforce arms and those gully claw pieces in old grey. Just repeating those creates this beautiful shape and this beautiful organic look to them. Very much helps create that sort of very curved look like a sort of body part would normally have. And then, a little bit more part spamming on the tail and stuff like that. Really helps to create these beautiful, smooth flowing textures and sort of shapes and things on this much larger mock. And so yeah, if you are building a larger thing, part spamming is the way to go. And I love the tubes here, this beautiful hint of teal really popping up against this grey and red color scheme here. Very nice. And I love the eyes too, the fact that they are this one by one cone piece, and then they sort of slowly transition from black into black and more of that sort of trans green with the studs there. Kind of looks like it has this sort of much longer eye that sort of slowly fades a bit. I don't know, it's creepy and cool and very unique. I love it. And also some pretty cool looking finger designs there, looking very sort of, I don't know, these guys look kind of dragon-like in nature, but yeah, overall, I don't know, it just looks really cool. So yeah, great work. That, I believe, was made by, yes, that was made by Andrew specifically. This is the one that Jafer made, and this is Kadok, the blue one. So I love the tail design on both of these guys, but this one's super cool because it's got a little bit of oozing out of it, and this is actually taking an idea from my book, because I had this on the workshop and I suggested that he focus on the fact that they are the Bohrok queens. They were, females that gave birth to the Bohrok kind of thing, and so it's kind of like, why not apply that to the actual mock, because that was not present in the original ones, and Jafer in fact did that and kind of gave Kadok here a little thing coming out of the tail there where the Bohrok obviously sort of come out of. That's a really gross but super cool detail, and a great way of sort of advancing the story, and just a little subtle notion, but a really nice one. And also the fact that you can see little bits of green popping out on the tail there too kind of implies that something's going on inside and stuff. Very fitting, very cool. Same sort of stuff, very similar techniques to the last one, but some slight variations and stuff, and I think that's a really welcome thing. So the two look very similar because they're basically the same thing, but they are very different too, because they are different colors and they are two different beings to some degree, and it's cool. And this beautiful looking head design here with this sort of flex tube crest coming out there, like little horns and stuff. Very much reminiscent of the original, as was the crest on the other one as well. Very cool. Overall, brilliant shape. Love the purple Purple little hints there as well. They really pop against the color scheme, much like it was with the last one. Both very similar, but very uniquely different mocks, and a brilliant reinterpretation of the original. Really, really nice work. Some of my favorite stuff that these two have made. Very nicely done. Can't stress that enough. Really, really like these guys. Well, these guys, I mean the work that they have done, the mocks they've made, and they're two upstanding gentlemen. Two upstanding Australian gentlemen too, might I add. Anyway, nicely done. So great work, you guys. This has been some awesome Bohrok mocks, as well as their queens to finish off the episode. Very nice work. So if you're looking to make a Bohrok mock, there's lots of different routes that you can take, and lots of ways that you can use their parts in some cool ways, or reimagine them in some cool ways. So if you want to submit some of your own mocks to the Bionicle Inspiration series, nope, you can't. Too bad. I'm kidding. You can. Here's how you can. See the link on the, no, it's not a link, it's an email, in fact. See the email that you're currently seeing on your screen. You send some pictures, you send a link, if you've got a link, I always prefer a link, some information, who you are, what the mock is called, anything you want to throw into the email, just say hi even, you know. Submit your mocks to this email that you're currently seeing on the screen, and one day it'll appear on the show. Actually, don't just, I mean, you can say hi, like, you know, of course you can, but bear in mind I do just use that email for bissubmission purposes. You're welcome to say hello, I might reply to you, but it's way more likely that I'll reply to you if you chuck me a message on like Instagram or Facebook or Flickr or something, because that's more of a place where I talk to people, and by all means I'll happily have a chat with you. But yeah, that's just for submissions at the moment. Otherwise, that's it. Hope you enjoyed these mocks. Take a look at the links in the description so you can check out more that these guys have made. They're talented builders, and they deserve all the love that they can get. Aww. Anyway, see ya, happy building, bye for now.